Okay, and then we'll do cranial nerves. And I don't want to go through all the structures, but I just want to kind of do the big picture orientation of the brain. And I think this one is actually going to end up being a little more convenient just because it's a little bit more highly dissected. But remember, there's 5 general regions of the brain: the telencephalon, diencephalon, mesencephalon, metencephalon, and myelencephalon. And that's from front to back. The telencephalon consists in the shark of the olfactory bulbs, olfactory tract, and cerebral hemispheres. So this is the olfactory bulb here. And the olfactory bulb is plastered right up against the back of the olfactory sac. Okay, so this is actually part of the brain, not part of the nose there. Okay. And then running back from the olfactory bulb to the rest of the brain is the olfactory tract. And maybe if I hold it this way, that would be more convenient. Right there. So that's the olfactory tract. You see that okay? Okay. So I know these things are a little small, but there they are. That's olfactory tract running back. Okay. And then this is the cerebral hemisphere right behind that it's connecting to.
The tract is part of the nose, not the brain?
No, the tract is part of the brain. So a tract in general is a whole bunch of axons and dendrites that are in a bundle running through the central nervous system. So in the brain or in the spinal cord. Okay, so together, bulb, tract, and cerebral hemispheres are the telencephalon. Behind the telencephalon, we get to the diencephalon. And the diencephalon is this little area right in here that has a clear roof over it. And that clear roof is called the tela choroidea, which means the choroid roof, I guess, right in there. Okay. So there's the roof of the diencephalon. And that whole region is called the epithalamus, the top of the diencephalon. The sides of it are the thalamus, and the floor of it is the hypothalamus. So epithalamus, thalamus, hypothalamus. And we're not removing the brains from our sharks. I told you don't, because it just makes a big mess of them to do it. But if you did and flip the brain upside down, you could see the hypothalamus in that region on the underneath. Okay. One thing I will point out, because it shows up pretty nicely on Colleen's chart, so if you look carefully in there on the tela choroidea, you can see this whitish strand running right down the midline of it. Mm-hmm. Do you see that? Okay. Do you guys see that? Yeah? Okay. Give me a nod, because I can't really tell if you're seeing those right there. This whitish strand running right down the middle of the roof of the diencephalon. That, anyone know what that is? Epiphysis. That's the epiphysis, which is the pineal. Remember the pineal eye, which is, we already saw in a lamprey. In the shark, remember in the chondrocranium, there's this little hole, the epiphyseal foramen. And the epiphysis runs along there, and then it stretches up to that epiphyseal foramen of the chondrocranium, and it has light receptors that detect light there. So they have their pineal eye too. All right, so that's the diencephalon. Moving back, what comes next after diencephalon? Mesencephalon, or midbrain. And in the shark, what we see of the mesencephalon are these 2 big lobes here, here, and here. Okay, and what are those called, these guys? Those are the optic lobes, exactly. So these guys here. And the optic lobes are getting information from the eyes. That's what we're called, the optic lobes. Okay. Cool. Mesencephalon, metencephalon comes next. And the main thing we see of the metencephalon is this big kind of football-shaped structure here, and that would be the
cerebellum.
Cerebellum. Yep, that's the cerebellum. And that part of the cerebellum that looks like a football is called the body of the cerebellum. There are these little things that stick off to the side that, I guess you can kind of see it here. This little blob kind of sticking off to the side there. And that's called the auricle of the cerebellum. This little thing right here.
No, wow.
Okay.
Is it only on one side or on both
There,
sides?
it's on both sides. It's just a little bit scrambled up on the other side, but it's there. And that's another part of the cerebellum. I just wanted to be clear on that. Okay, and then we get to the myelencephalon, which is the same thing as the medulla oblongata. Okay, so you may have heard that term before. And that's this whole region in here running to the back of the skull. Okay. So this whole area, like this here. Okay. And what you'll see in the floor of the myelencephalon, because remember the brain is hollow, it's got cavities in it. What do we call those cavities? Generally speaking? Like in the diencephalon, we have the third ventricle. Okay, so the cavities in the brain are called the ventricles. Inside of the two cerebral hemispheres, there's one on the left and one on the right. We call those the lateral ventricles. In the diencephalon, there's a cavity we call the third ventricle. The hindbrain, met in myelencephalon, we have a cavity which we call the fourth ventricle. And there's a roof over it that's been removed, the tila choroidea of the fourth ventricle, that covered it over. So we're seeing now into that space in the fourth ventricle. And what I want you to notice is there's these ridges that run along the bottom of the floor of the fourth ventricle there. Do you see that?
Was it removed from dissecting or like evolution?
No, it was there.
Oh, okay.
It's very, very thin. It tends just to kind of tear and go away on its own. But no, not evolution. It was there at some point further sharp. So do you see those kind of ridges running along there? Okay. You see these ridges running along the floor of the fourth ventricle? Okay. Those are what are called the somatic motor columns. And so that's where the cell bodies of motor neurons sit. And if you kind of go around from there, and want you to be aware of this because we'll come back to this when we talk about the organization of the nervous system, you'll find visceral motor, then visceral sensory, and then somatic sensory columns that are associated with different specific types of neurons. So I just wanted you to notice them because they're really big and prominent there.
Is that where the glossopharyngeal nerve and stuff come out of?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're getting to the nerves. Okay, so that was a very quick overview of the brain, but I just wanted to make sure we're kind of on it. But I also want to leave us some time for the nerves.